Welcome to this episode of my Bible study series. My name is Abimbola Ayodele. I am Nigerian and I'm currently studying the books of the Bible, and I'm sharing with you my lessons, morals, things that I pick up from studying the Bible actually. And I am currently in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 25 is what I'll be reviewing on this episode. I usually use the Good News Translation Bible for my studies. So let's just get into it already. The descendants of Abraham. Abraham named another woman, Abraham married another woman whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuha. Jokshan was the father of Sheba and Dedan, and the descendants of Dedan were the Ashurium, the Letzium, the Lumium. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Anok, Abida, Eldah. All these were Keturah's descendants. Abraham left everything he owned to Isaac, but while he was still alive, he gave presents to the sons of his other wives. To the sons his other wives had borne him. Then he sent these sons to the land of the east, away from his son Isaac. Abraham died at the ripe age of 175. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in Machpelah cave in the field east of Mamre that had belonged to Ephron, son of Zuhah the Hittite. It was the field that Abraham had bought from the Hittites. Both Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried there. After the death of Abraham, God blessed his son Isaac, who lived near the well of the living one who sees me. Ishmael, whom Agar, the Egyptian slave of Sarah, bore to Abraham, had the following sons listed in the order of their birth: Nebaioth, Kedar, Adbeel, Mibzam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Adad, Tema, Jitor, Naphish, and Kidima. They were the ancestors of 12 tribes, and their names were given to their villages and camping places. Ishmael was 137 years old when he died. The descendants of Ishmael lived in the territory between Avila and Shur, to the east of Egypt on the way to Assyria. They lived apart from the other descendants of Abraham. This is the story of Abraham's son, Isaac. Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, an Aramean from Mesopotamia and sister of Laban. Because Rebekah had no children, Isaac prayed to the Lord for her. The Lord answered his prayer, and Rebekah became pregnant. She was going to have twins, and before they were born, they struggled against each other in her womb. She said, "Why should something like this happen to me?" So she went to ask the Lord for an answer. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are within you. You will give birth to two rival peoples. One will be stronger than the other will serve the younger." The time came for her to give birth, and she had twin sons. The first one was reddish, and his skin was like a hairy rope, so he was named Esau. The second one was born holding on tightly to the heel of Esau, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when they were born. The boys grew up, and Esau became a skilled hunter, a man who loved the outdoors, but Jacob was a quiet man who stayed at home. Isaac preferred Esau because he enjoyed eating the animals Esau killed, but Rebekah preferred Jacob. One day, while Jacob was cooking some bean soup, Esau came in from hunting. He was hungry and said to Jacob, "I am starving. Give me some of that red stuff." That is why he was named Edom. Jacob answered, "I will give it to you if you give me your rights as the firstborn son." Esau said, "All right, I am about to die. What good will my rights do to me?" Jacob answered, "First make a vow that you will give me your rights." Esau made the vow and gave his rights to Jacob, and Jacob gave him some bread and some of the soup. He ate and drank and then got up and left. That was all Esau cared about, his rights as the firstborn son. What a way to put it. Chapter 25 builds up on the story of Abraham, Isaac, and his descendants. Basically, I've already shared stories and my morals from previous videos. So here we see that Abraham remarried after I lost his wife Sarah, which is which is all right. I mean, it's okay for for you to be married if you lose your spouse. I believe that that is so. So instead of sleeping around, Abraham decided to get married again, and then he married Keturah, and he had other sons. But here we see that the Bible is very specific. The Bible referred to the children as Keturah's descendants and not Abraham's descendants, because the promise of God was between Abraham and his wife Sarah. So Isaac was the child of promise. So they were not the other children that Keturah had. They were not part of the plans of God. It was outside God's divine plan, to multiply Abraham on the earth. I believe that's why they kept mentioning, and that's why the Bible keeps emphasizing on the descendants of Abraham. Yes, very well. Abraham had other wives. He had Keturah, and well, he didn't marry Agar, but the Bible refers to them as other wives. So he has Keturah, he has Agar. Agar was the maid servant of Sarah, who had a child for him, Ishmael. So we see that, it's not like he had the children and did not take care of them. He provided for them. The Bible tells us that he gave them gifts, and that was it. He gave them at least things to start off their lives with. And then he gave all his inheritance to Isaac, because Isaac is the child of promise, basically. And then we see that he dies at the ripe age of 175. He had Isaac when he was 100, and he lived up to another 75 years after he had given birth to Isaac. It reminds me of what I said in the video before, that when God has a promise on your life, and as long as you're living right, you're doing the right things, you've not broken the edge around you, you have God's divine protection around you, there's no way that you're going to die without seeing the manifestation of God's promises in your life. I said in that video that once God's promises are active in your life, there's guarantee of living a long life, basically. Abraham lived he lived another 75 years after he had his son Isaac. Sarah lived another 35 years or 37 years after she had her son Isaac, basically. And so Abraham dies, and we see that he's buried. He's buried in the cave they had bought. I shared my morals from that story when they bought the cave from the Hittites. You can go watch that video somewhere there, check it out. And so here we see that he's buried with his wife in the same cave by his sons Ishmael and Isaac, basically. So it's good to just leave a good legacy. It's good to live right, and prepare for your death as well. Prepare for the time that you will die, basically, because if you had not bought that land, well, it sounds like I figured out a good way to bury him, but it was just good that he made that preparation, basically, by bought the cave. I'm sure when he bought the cave, he only had his wife Sarah. I just wanted to give her a befitting burial, and then the cave was big enough to accommodate other dead people as well. So it's just good for us to plan for our death as well, basically. Like, let our lives just plan for our death, basically. I saw that. And we see that Isaac gets married at the age of 40, and then he has to wait another 20 years to have his own children. What I saw there is history repeating itself. I believe I've said this. I believe I've mentioned something like this. Like, there is generational patterns are real. Generational patterns are real. Foundational patterns are real. Basically, it is so real. Abraham and his wife Sarah had an ordeal of barrenness. They had to wait 25 years. And here, see Isaac, his son, he has to wait another 20 years for him to have his own children. I feel like it was history repeating itself. So that for me, that's like, for me, I feel like we should be aware of family histories and see if they are replaying in our lives. God has made available the power of prayer, the power of deliverance to set us free from every evil pattern that may be going on in our families. If that's what I see here, Isaac had to wait 20 years to have his own children. And then we see that he prayed for his wife. He prayed to God for his wife. God bless my wife with babies, with children. And then God answered him. And then she was pregnant with twins, double. And God answered his prayers. So that's the lesson for us. As many of you that are trusting God for your own babies, does your husband pray for you? because I learned something in church, like, husbands should lay their hands on their wives' wombs and bless the womb, pray for them, basically, like, pray for them. It's not just the wife going to pregnant women's meetings and praying. The husbands should also pray for their wives as well. That's what Isaac did here. And then we see that while Rebecca was pregnant, the babies were, doing their thing in the womb, and I feel like she was stressed. She was worried, like, why is this happening? Why am I feeling so uncomfortable? And then, as a woman of God, right? She must have had the relationship with God for her to go and ask God, and God answers her. And then she goes to God and asks, like, why is it so? Why am I feeling so uncomfortable? What is the problem? And then God tells her that you have two nations in your womb. They are rivals, and God explains the situation to her. And she probably had some peace within her, that she probably was worried that, oh my God, am I going to lose these babies? I've waited so long. Am I going to lose them? What is happening? She probably felt some kind of peace hearing from God, and like, okay, God is assuring her that everything is fine. It's just that there are two mighty men in your womb. Just, keep praying and all that. And then they gave birth. She gave birth to the sons. She named them Jacob and Esau and Jacob. And then here we see that, the two parents have their favorite between the sons. I am not so cool with that, with parents saying, oh, this is my favorite. I don't know. I'm not cool with that, but who am I? Who am I? And that was it. And then they grew up. Jacob was the quiet one. Esau was like the one who was going out to hunt and all that. And then we see a scene. We see where Esau sold his birthright for just a plate of red pottage. I feel like that was the beginning of his downfall. He shouldn't have done that. We're going to read about it in the future chapters. He gave too little importance. He ascribed too little importance to his birthright. Like, every action, our actions count, our words count towards the formation of our destinies, basically. Everything, every act that we engage in, it plays a functional role in our destinies. And him selling his birthright for a plate of pottage was the beginning of his struggles. And then we'll see that God's word actually comes to manifestation in the future chapters. So just to summarize Genesis chapter 25, right? This chapter highlights the descendants, the children of Abraham. Abraham remarried a woman called Keturah after he had lost his wife Sarah, and he had other children. He had a child with called Ishmael with Agar. So, but God doesn't recognize them as the children of promise because he helped himself. That was his own business. God's business was between him and Sarah, and the promised child was Isaac. Definitely. So Isaac was the legit descendant of Abraham. And then we see that Abraham leaves all his inheritance to Isaac, but he blesses his other children with gifts and all that. So he wasn't a wicked father. He made provisions for his children. And we see that, he had dug a good well for himself. He bought a cave to bury his wife before when she died. And then we see that, even in his death, Abraham enjoys the fruit of his labor. The cave that he had bought from the Hittites, it got buried there as well. So my moral there is we should live, as we live our lives to be impactful in our generation, we should also think about when we die. What are people going to say about us? Our children are going to, take it, just let's live our lives. Let's live our lives with that in view as well. Let's think about when we die. How is it going to be? What's it going to look like, basically? And then Isaac and his wife having to wait 20 years. What I see there is generational pattern. I see history repeating itself. It is so real. It happens in real life. I've heard stories of, that's why doctors, when someone has cancer or diabetes, they ask, is there a history of diabetes in your family? How it is health wise, it is spiritually too. So it's very important for us to actually know our family histories, and see if these histories, if these things are replaying in our lives. If it is good, well, you can embrace it. You have a choice, or you can aim higher. If it is bad, we have the power of prayer to break ourselves free from every evil pattern that you do not like, basically. And I see, and then another thing is that we should be very cautious about our actions. We should not be very fast to make moves because we are hungry or we are thirsty, and or we are desperate. We just do the unthinkable. Esau sells his birthright for a pot of red pottage. We'll learn about that in the future, the beginning of Esau's struggles, basically. That's like the highlights of the things that I learned on this chapter right now. If you saw anything, if you picked anything that I did not share, of course, I love to learn. Share with me. If you have questions as well, ask me. I'm willing. I would love to hear from you. Till next time, when I'll be bringing you another Bible chapter. God bless you. Bye.